Hello everyone, welcome to Installing Landscape Plants. This is a good lecture that's going to talk about, first of all, buying the correct types of plants and how to actually install these landscape plants to reduce stress on the plants after they've been transplanted. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the importance of proper installation. And the first thing you got to do is you've got to locate and purchase high quality plant material. You can't go to the jack of all trades landscaper who's doing everything under the sun, mowing, installing, designing. Go to somebody who is 100% dedicated to growing high quality plant materials. Um, Depending on the type of installation that you're doing, you may have to locate these plant materials at several different nurseries. There may not be a one-stop shop to purchase all of the good quality plants that you need for your installations. And then careful installation ensures the survival and growth of plants. It doesn't matter how good of a quality of a plant that you buy. If you don't correctly install it, you're going to increase the chances of plant stress and take a chance of having to replace that plant later because it died. There's going to be some necessary tools that you're going to need for installing landscape plants. Hand tools, you're going to need your shovels, your rakes, spades, a digging bar possibly, and some good quality hand tools. You don't need to buy the less expensive ones. Sometimes you need to invest in good hand tools, especially if you're going to be using these every day. Power tools that could help you install plant materials is a tree spade. You're actually going to see that on the front of possibly a skid steer, track loader, or wheeled loader, but you'll see those on a skid steer machine. A power auger or tiller, again, you could see those on a skid steer. You could actually see those on a mini excavator. My favorite way to plant numerous trees in a day would be to have an auger on a mini excavator that's digging the holes, and then I have a skid steer running back and forth with my trees to plant. A tractor that could have a front end loader could suffice over the skid steer, and there are auger type based units that you could get on the PTO for the tractor. Again, a backhoe or trencher. I've planted many trees using a trencher either on the skid steer or on the dingo. The dingo, guys, is a little stand up mini skid steer. You actually stand up on it, and it comes with numerous attachments. It comes with the bucket, it comes with the trencher, an auger with several different size auger bits that you could get, a tiller, so all kinds of tools that you could get for that dingo. And that's and I'd have to say, even with the skid steer, the two skid steers we have, my choice for small landscape jobs would be the dingo. And then a tree porter. You may or may not want to use that in your business. Root forms of landscape plants. We have bare root. It's very common for deciduous shrubs. Me personally, I've never planted bare root plants on a landscape job. Now, we have purchased landscape plants to grow some trees in the field, but I've never actually planted them for a job, and you probably never won't. But some people in other parts of the country may be doing it for deciduous shrubs. They're used for trees that develop the new roots quickly after planting. So one of your faster growing trees, maybe a willow oak or something like that, could possibly be used. The advantages are they're inexpensive, they're lightweight, and then they're dormant. Another advantage is that they could be shipped UPS or FedEx. You could have some bare root trees shipped from Washington State, and arrive here in North Carolina in a short amount of time and be ready to plant. But that's another good advantage. And it just depends on what type of jobs you're doing. I mean, if you are planting young trees for someone like that, and it's a great number, it's going to reduce their cost, and you can have them shipped in. Disadvantages of bare root plants is that they do have the reduced root system. You can only get them in the spring, and they are very, very small. All right, balled and barlapped, or B&B. My favorite, well, probably not my favorite to plant. I'd much rather plant a large container tree because of the lightweightness of it. But your B&B trees, they're useful for evergreens. They are useful for deciduous trees as well. Some shrubs, possibly, I've seen Nellie Stevens, Foster hollies, several other evergreens that, you may consider being a shrub, but, nothing like azaleas or anything like that you're going to purchase in the landscape. Yeah, you may transplant some boxwoods from a field that would probably come B&B, but it's going to be hard to find shrubs that are B&B here in this area. Advantages of B&B trees: they're larger, there's less damage to the roots, and they can be transported in the spring or fall. Disadvantages is they're expensive, they're heavy, sometimes very heavy, depending on which nurseryman dug the tree for you, and then they are going to require special equipment. You're either going to have a skid steer, a dingo, or some type of cart that can move the trees for you. And it's something that if they're on the trailer or if they're on the back of the truck, you're going to have a hard time getting them off of that if you don't have some type of lift to get them off the back of the truck. Containerized. These are the plants that you see in the 1 gallon, 3 gallon, 5 gallon, 7 gallon, even up to 15 gallon black pots. The plants are delivered in that container. Some advantages to that: they're less expensive, the root system is intact, and they can be transplanted in the spring, summer, or fall. So if it's on the nursery lot in the retail center or on the wholesale nursery lot, you can purchase it and install it. Disadvantages is that they're small and the plant can become root bound. And what I mean by root bound is the roots just wrap around inside the container. So a lot of the times before you plant, well, first of all, you're going to be able to tell it's root bound. You're not going to be able to get that container off of the plant. You're going to have to pull. You probably have to take your pocket knife and kind of cut the container away. And then you're going to see all these white roots wrapped around, going in a circular direction. So you're going to have to take your pocket knife. You're going to have to score those roots so they'll start to spread out inside the hole that you've dug for the plant. Time to transplant. The prime objective: select the time that will permit good root growth before shoots and leaves develop. The best season depends on the type of material. For most plants, autumn is the best. Early spring will be your second best, and then summer and winter are undesirable. And we all know that working for general contractors, commercial builders, there's going to be times that you're planting plant material that you don't need to. We've done several O'Reilly auto parts for a builder in Tennessee, and we would do the jobs in June and July. We would do them in December. We would do them in January, February. So we've done numerous jobs for them, and depending on what was on the plan, we could do the job. We could locate the plant material for the jobs. In the summer, we just had to make sure that they had irrigation, and most of the stores had irrigation on them, so we were able to install the irrigation first and then make sure that our turf and trees had the water that they needed. But we still had to watch the plant materials until the manager took over the store. Once the manager of the store took over, we were relieved of our plant material warranty. And the good thing was we were there, just days before the store was opening anyway. Methods of installation: your goal is to reduce the stress and transplant shock of the trees. And you'll see it more so, with your deciduous trees. They will go into shock, and it's not a pretty scene. You'll have some homeowners or builders call you back wanting to know what's going on. So the idea is to reduce this shock and stress prior to leaving. Make sure that you take every necessary step of purchasing the right material and installing the plants the way that they need to be installed. Here are some means of reducing stress. Preparation of the site and root system. Again, remember about scoring the plants that have got root bound inside the bucket. Proper placement and handling. And a lot of this depends on how you transport the trees. You may want to cover the plant material and transport, or maybe carry them in a covered trailer. The plant materials. If you've got trees in the back of your truck, just wrap them up so they don't get burnt. Wind burn, sunburn. Handling the trees. You've took the time to locate and purchase quality plant material, and then the next thing you do is you nick a chunk of bark off the side of a tree. You've just created a stressful situation for the tree. Correct backfilling, making sure, one, that you dig a large enough hole and that you backfill the hole properly with the soil that you dug out, and then adding in your soil amendments. Adequate water and mulching. Water the tree in. Water the plant material before you leave your shop. Mulch it as soon as you can, because mulching is going to help retain that moisture in the soil. Protection and stabilization. You're going to want to maybe wrap the trees with some orange net fencing so people know to stay away from it. You may want to put like a metal grate around it, and you're definitely probably going to want to either stake the tree or guide the tree to make sure that it stays upright. And then a timely follow-up care. You do need to check up on your jobs once you've completed them. You don't need to just walk away from them thinking that everything's okay. Have a plan in place that once a month you have somebody drive by, especially during the warranty period. You may want to check on your newly installed landscapes once a month, just to see how everything's going. Maybe a couple times a month, depending on your schedule. But this could save you some time and money of having to replace plant material. There may be an irrigation head that's not getting enough water to some of the trees. Well, a simple fix of adjusting the rotor or adding another pop-up could help reduce having to replace plant material. For flowers, ground covers, and beds, bulbs, the best thing to do is go ahead and prepare a new bed. You don't want to dig an individual hole. Best thing is to go ahead and till the soil that is going to have these ground covers for flowers, and you're going to go ahead and till in your soil amendments, your soil conditioner, your peat moss, and anything else that a soil test may determine that you need. Go ahead and till it all in. It's going to be a whole lot easier planting these types of plants. For one, the soil's already soft. I mean, you till it up right, you can get down there with some gloves on and just pull it back loosely and install the flowers or bulbs. With trees and shrubs, it's going to depend on the size and form of the root systems. And then the planting hole is going to vary from size depending on the plants that you're using and site to site. A lot of times you're going to go in and you're going to have excellent soil to work with. You're going to not have to add too much soil amendments. It's good to do it. What we've done from experience, we'd always dig the hole, and we have our landscape plan from the architect or designer, and I'll take the plan, I'll go ahead and I will mark where the larger trees go first. Say we're doing an auto parts store. It's going to have it's going to have red maples, and it's going to have crepe myrtles, and it's going to have numerous dwarf Burford hollies. Those are the three typical plants we would plant on the site. Sometimes it would be up as many as 200 dwarf Burford hollies, depending on the zoning requirements required for the towns that we were in. But we would mark the maples first. Go ahead and dig those, get them installed, watered in. While the guys are finishing up with the maples, I'm marking the holes for the crepe myrtles. We get them in. And then last but not least would be the dwarf Burford hollies. And because they were spaced in between the Jap maples, I was able to mark it and then dig those holes. And we always dug pretty much any hole we could with an auger. With that dingo being as small as it is and actually having an auger bit that was just perfect, the right size for a 3-gallon shrub that our dwarf Burfords came in, I mean, it was a matter of, holding down the tape, taking a little paint can and spraying the hole, and then some guys just always digging the hole and the guys coming right back in and planting. But you got to make sure that your auger bit is big enough to make sure that the auger bit is big enough that the plant has room on the sides for the backfill. And if not, what you can do is you dig the hole. It's maybe a little small, but you dig the hole, you set the plant in it, and then you take your spade and then all around the edge you chop, and you have to use your foot, you stomp on it, and you cut the sides in so that dirt or soil is being pushed down, and that the roots have softer soil to spread out its roots. Another thing, when we dug those holes, always had somebody coming by with some soil conditioner, peat moss, or any other soil amendment that they wanted added, and we would mix it up with the dirt that we've dug out of the hole, and we would replace it back into the hole after planting it. Glazing. It's caused when the soils are compacted along the sides of the planting hole, and it almost looks shiny. I guess that's why they're calling it glazing. But it blocks the roots from growing into the soil. It's just so hard on the sides, and you can prevent this by loosening the sides and the bottom of the planting hole with a process called scarification. Taking that spade and chopping along the sides, like I discussed in the previous slide, will also help with this glazing. Preparing the root system. If the pot-bound plant, you see those roots wrapped around it, gently squeeze the root mass to loosen it, or you could, scarify it with your knife. You could prune the damaged, dead, unhealthy roots, and then butterflying. It helps overcome girdling tendency of some of the containerized plants. You're taking that knife and you're cutting it and kind of opening it up, and it looks like a butterfly, and that's why they term the process butterflying. Placement and related care. Placement is very easy of the plants if they're lightweight. It's going to become more and more difficult as the size and the weight of the root ball increases. And you got to look at the project. Sometimes, we've done projects like in a courtyard. We've had to carry plant material through the building, or you had to get a crane and lift the trees up over the roof down into the courtyard. And you got to look at all this. And guys, I know sometimes you're going to get a landscape plan. It's going to be for a new project. And the thing with building commercial, you're going to be estimating a lot of these jobs prior to construction beginning. The builders are going to want, some type of cost idea for the plant material and the cost of the installation. So those are a little more tougher to bid. But if you're bidding on a project that's already under construction, make a site visit. Take a look and see where these plants are going to go. You'll have a plan. You take the plan, walk around on the site, and say, hey, I'm here pricing the landscape job, just want to do a site visit. 9 times out of 10, you're going to meet the superintendent. He's going to talk to you about it. He's going to let you know when the job will probably be ready for you. He's going to show you where sleeves are under the driveway, or if there even is sleeves for the driveway if you're having to run irrigation pipe. So please make those site visits, and just realize that plans that call for 2.5 inch caliper tree, it's going to be B&B. They're going to be heavy, and you're going to have a way to move them around on site. Your root flare. It should be located before setting the root ball in place, and this root flare is responsible for the stability of the plant. And the root flare, the best way to think of that, guys, is a flare. It kind of flares out. So you've got your trunk that's coming straight down, and then when the the trunk starts to flare out, that's your root flare. What you don't want to do is have that root flare covered up with soil or covered up with mulch. You want to expose that root flare. So you want to plant it high enough that that the soil and the mulch would cover up the root flare. Plus, if you plant a tree too deep, you have a chance of overwatering it and the plant not being able to dry out. You want just a little bit of the root ball to stick out of your B&B plants, or even your containerized plants. You want about that much sticking up above your soil level. That way the plant's not going to drown. Correct backfilling. Again, soil is returned to the planting hole after it is set. The interface is the place where the backfill meets both the soil ball and the sides of the planting hole. Now, you don't want it to be just that much space. That's when you would come and chop the sides and actually use that soil to cut down into it and then backfill with your existing soil that you dug out of the hole. The large difference between the soil elements can negatively affect the transplant. Try to take a soil test if at all possible. If not, it's always wise to add soil amendments, soil conditioner, and peat moss especially. And another thing that you need to check that's not going to be on your landscape plan is you need to ask the superintendent or the builder for a copy of the specifications. The landscape specifications is what you've got to go by. Yeah, you're using the plan to install the plant materials, install the pavers, install the irrigation system, but you need to read the specifications because that's going to tell you exactly what to do, especially when it comes to guying the trees or staking the trees and actually using a wrap for the tree. Watering and mulching. Some plants require water before transplant. Always check. See, and you don't want to plant a shrub or tree that's already dry. You'd want to water it at your shop, possibly the day before, moving it to the new landscape site. Some plants are going to require water during transplant. So basically what we would do, as soon as we got the trees and shrubs in the ground, we're going ahead and having somebody hand water those plant materials. And then with mulch, the application of loose aggregate materials to the surface of the planting bed or backfilled planting pit. And you can use either an organic or inorganic mulch. On the auto parts stores, we used a mixture of each. It was either hardwood mulch, or we used a lot of like pea gravel stuff that they wanted, especially in their islands in the parking lot. Protecting and stabilizing trunk wraps. They can protect the tree, especially a young tree that has the thin bark and is very vulnerable to the weather. It's a protective covering applied from the base of the tree to the first set of branches. So it comes in a little package about that. It's just wrap, and you just wrap it around the trunk. The landscape industry has mixed support. I see it being beneficial to the plants, but I also see it hurting the plants. It's all to do with like a timing. And here again, you must read the specs. The landscape architect is going to be the one that specifies what needs to be done. They're going to say, wrap the trees or don't wrap the trees. So read it in the specifications. There may be a detail on the landscape plan, but if not, always double check your specifications. The wrap can protect the tree, from sun scald and the weather, because that bark is really, really thin. But if you leave it on too long, it creates a place that the tree can get a wound, and then you have a chance for insects and disease to get into these wounds and actually damage the tree further. And that's why there's mixed feelings about the tree wrap. And another is staking and guying. Check the specifications. Does the landscape architect want you to stake every tree, or do they want you to use 3 stakes, 2 stakes? Do they want you to use a string, or do they want you to use actual wire? Check your specifications. And staking is metal stakes that are driven into the ground parallel to the tree. So you've got your tree trunk, and then you've got metal stakes that are dug down beside it, parallel to it. And they're attached to the tree via wire and hose link. We'd always saved our old garden hoses, and we'd cut them into like 12-inch sections that we could run the wire through, and that hose is what's on the tree, not the actual metal wire. So you've got that hose that's protecting the tree from the wire cutting in, but they need that wire to be pulled tight so to keep the tree upright and won't move over with wind or anything like that. Guying is the stabilization of large trees and plants using wire attached to anchoring devices. So these basically, they're shorter stakes that are anchored into the soil, and then you've got the wires coming up out of the ground. Dead man, they are the underground anchors used to guy exceptionally large trees. So a lot of these large tree movers would be doing stuff like this. Possibly, more likely not us being landscape contractors. Antitranspirants, also known as antidesiccants, desiccants. They are chemicals that reduce the amount of water loss through transpiration. What they're going to do, you'd spray these chemicals on the plant material while you're transplanting them. More so on the bottom of the leaf, where the stomata are. What it's going to do is this chemical is either going to close the stomatas, or they're going to give it a protective coating, and it's actually going to prevent water loss through the leaves, because when the plants get stressed, they're going to start losing their water. And you may also want to add this chemical to your evergreens if you're transplanting in the winter, because plants can lose just as much water in the winter as they can during the hot summer days. The follow-up care of your transplants. Pruning. You want to go by and prune any dead branches or stuff that came out. Again, that monthly or bi-monthly inspection that you go by, bi-weekly inspection, could prevent the homeowner or the property manager from getting upset. If they see a dead branch, they think the whole tree's dying. It may just be something that got damaged during transplant or transport. You just go and cut it out. Careful watering. Make sure that you are checking the water. Weeding. You may need to read the specs on that. There may be some architects that specify that you're supposed to do like a 1-year maintenance on the plants, and that would include mulching it again and taking care of the weeds. Rodent control. You want to make sure that there's nothing down at your plant roots eating the plant roots. You need to check the stakes and the guys that you've installed. You need to check the specifications on to see when you need to remove the stakes and guys. Landscape architects will go to that extent and tell you when to do that. And then you may need to reapply your antidesiccants or your antitranspirants. Installing bedding plants and ground covers. You have the spacing of the plants determines the amount of time needed to achieve your desired effect. Closer spacing means more rapid coverage. So the closer you plant the plant materials, the more it's going to get full and just cover the bed quickly. Frequent watering is going to prevent drying out. And the frequent watering is going to prevent the deep rooting. If you're watering for a short amount of time, several times a week, the roots are going to stay up top. If you water once a week deeply, the roots are going to get deeper. And then mulching is not recommended. What we do when we do an annual bed like this is we till everything in, till the soil amendments, and then we'll put a light coat of your pine bark conditioner on top. I mean, that's what we're tilling into the soil, and then we just put a little more on top before we actually plant the bed. So we're not actually using like a hardwood mulch or pine straw. Installing bulbs, they're going to need a rich, well-drained soil. They're going to be planted in beds and borders. They're going to be planted in masses. And then the depth and spacing varies by the species. So there's a chart in your textbook that lists several of the bulbs, and it's going to give you the depth of each bulb, and it's going to tell you the spaces, how far you would need to plant these bulbs apart. And you're always going to want to set close to the ground. Problems of arid regions, we're not going to have to worry about this here being in the southeast, but some problems that they do encounter is the soil quality is generally poor. Irrigation is needed throughout the year, which would be good for irrigation contractors. And they have very hot days and very cool nights. They're going to have high and dry winds, and then the arid soils. So they would want to add gypsum, adobe, and caliche to the soil to help with that. Help hold what moisture that the soil does get. Sun scald, it's hazard in arid regions. It manifests as water loss. And then the prevention would be the trunk wraps that we said is, controversial in the industry. And then some would even go to the extent of doing like a whitewash paint on the trunks. Planting palms in the southeast. All right. Got really excited when started seeing palm trees in North Carolina here, where we're at in the Piedmont area. But palms, they're monocots that grow as trees or shrubs. They can have either a single or multi trunk. The roots are produced continuously from the base, and they may be produced in containers or they may be grown in fields. And they should be set at the same depth that they were as growing. You'd want to, wherever you see the top of that soil line, either in the B&B or the container, is where you need to plant it in your landscape. And this concludes installing landscape plants. If there's any questions, you guys can send me an email or call me during office hours. Thanks, and I hope you have a great day.